lies, and betrayal. I called my lawyer on her cell phone and she picked up on the fourth ring. This better be important. Or my God, I'm sending you a bill that you'll end up paying with your Social Security checks. Sheila Goldstein was a true shark, and I found some strange comfort in her take-no-prisoners attitude. Who would have thought a divorce attorney could have a sense of humor? Who said I was joking? I need you to contact a criminal defense attorney who's working tonight. I heard a crackle on the line. Tell me you didn't do something stupid. No, someone else did. The cops just left my house. That asshole's wife caught up to them and shot both of them. He's dead, and she's in surgery. I'm betting she doesn't have an attorney. Listen to me. Tell me you had nothing to do with this, and for God's sake, say it like you mean it. I had nothing to do with it. Now say it like I'm supposed to believe you. I'm telling you the truth. I had nothing to do with this. The cops were here and they told me about it. I think they were wondering the same thing you are, but I had no involvement. All right. So why is this your problem? It's not, but I think misery loves company. If we hadn't had that talk at the office about keeping cool, this could have been me. I just want to help her. I heard a heavy, deep sigh on the other end of the line. Fine. Do you know where she is? Do you mean Helen Smith? Did your wife have sex with another woman's husband? Yes, I mean Helen Smith. I don't know where she is, but the shooting happened. In town. It's a small place, so soon she's at the police station. All right, stay put. I'll call a colleague and see if he can get over there. At the very least, he can sit with her until she finds an attorney. I need to go to the hospital. Fine, you can go to the hospital, but don't be alone with her. If anything happens, I want at least 3 meters between you and her and a minimum of 2 witnesses. Got it, George. Yes, I know you. You have conflicting feelings. I'm sorry for what's happening, but you're not responsible, and everything will be fine. Do you hear me? Yes, ma'am, I hear you. Good. Go do what you need to do, but behave yourself. I hung up the phone thinking, did I just say yes, ma'am? Why does she make me feel like a little kid? And why does it work so well? It didn't matter. She was looking out for me when I felt completely lost, giving me direction when I needed it. Now I'd have to make her proud of me. I took a shower and changed my clothes a few weeks ago. I would have rushed to her side to be with her, but Jean had killed that love. Now I just had obligations I needed to fulfill, including ensuring she received proper medical care and that the hospital got our insurance information. The divorce could wait. I wasn't going to tear my clothes in grief no matter the outcome, but I would fulfill my marital duties by making sure strangers did their jobs. As it turned out, I could have taken more time. When I arrived, she was recovering, and they had been giving her sedatives all night. I provided them with our insurance information, spoke to the surgeon who said Jean was expected to survive, and then went back home. They would call me if there were any changes or when she woke up. It was well past midnight when I got home. I was exhausted but couldn't sleep, so I mentally drafted a to-do list. Everything could wait until morning, except for one very difficult task. I needed to call Jean's parents. They wanted to wait until morning, but if her condition worsened and they couldn't say goodbye, they would never forgive me. No matter what I thought of Jean, her parents had always been kind to me. So I picked up the phone and called. Hello? Do you know what time it is? Yes, Joe, I know. I had to call. Jean is injured, and they took her to Memorial Hospital. There was a brief pause as her father processed the information. Injured? What do you mean, injured? Joe, tonight she was shot by her lover's wife. Shot. What the hell are you talking about? Are you drunk? How did she get shot? No, Joe, I'm sober. The police were here earlier, and I've been to the hospital. The surgery is over, and the doctor says she's going to be fine. They gave her a sedative, so there's no point in going there. Tonight. I just wanted you to know. Are you with her now? No. I'm at home. Aren't you supposed to be with her? I was too tired to be angry. Joe, did you hear me? She was shot by her lover's wife. You're crazy. Jean doesn't have a lover. Yes. Joe, she has or had a lover. He's dead, but she's going. No, his wife killed him. I think you two were careless, or maybe she's just smarter than I am. That left her speechless. She leaned back against the bed and burst into tears. Soon I was told to leave, and I was glad to do so. Walking down the hallway, I wondered if I had ever really known this woman. She clearly had never known me. As I reached the elevator, I was met by 2 security guards. "Sir, can we have a word with you?" I looked at them and said, "No, you can't. I've already spoken to the police, and they cleared me. I'm not going to let the screams of a lying, cheating bitch give you the right to pretend you have any authority here. You can call the police if you want, and I'll talk to them, but you'll only look like fools. It's your call, but if you lay a hand on me, I'll sue." At that point, I had had enough. Trolley-a-la DeBill and Trolley-a-la Dumbass looked at each other, not knowing what to do as I stepped into the elevator to leave. The police didn't bother me again. Jean tried to get the police to press charges against me, but when the shooter was caught standing over the body and repeatedly confessed to the crime on the way to the station, there wasn't much else they could do. The lawyer I hired for Helen Smith managed to get her placed in a psychiatric ward instead of a jail cell. But sometimes I wonder if there's much of a difference. I visit her from time to time and find her as sane as anyone I know. Once, she asked, "Me? Any chance you could smuggle in a hacksaw hidden in a box of chocolates?" That's when I realized she was just as sane as you or me. I guess, in the end, that lawyer wasn't so bad. The divorce went through without much trouble. Jean didn't want me anymore, but she wanted everything we had, and everything I would ever have. She had to settle for half and no alimony. The judge wasn't impressed by her demands and said, "You have a job, Mrs. Bradley. You can work." I'm thinking about getting those words tattooed on my arm. Looking back, what I remember most is the amazing lawyer who treated me like a child, guiding me, scolding me, and shielding me from trouble. I also think fondly of 2 wonderful relatives of my ex-wife, with whom I still feel a strong connection, and a judge with great common sense. As for my ex-wife, I hardly think about her at all. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of English Epics. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye. Welcome to the English Epics channel. The night began as one of those predictably terrible nights filled with nothing but pain and anger, and then it got even worse. Or was it better? I suppose that depended on just how deeply the anger ate away at me, and I must admit there was plenty of it. It was around 10 day, and I was sitting in a darkened house, illuminated only by the floor lamp next to my chair. I had been working on my assignment for several hours, oblivious to the darkness beyond the artificial universe that extended just a meter from my chair. It perfectly matched my mood. Sitting with my legs crossed, I held a yellow notepad on my lap, jotting down lists and notes. I was completely absorbed in my writing when the doorbell rang. Looking up, still unaware of the time, I noticed the dark house for the first time and thought, who the hell could it be at this hour? I was damn sure it wasn't my wife, because she hadn't come home this early from her girls' nights out in months. I placed the notepad on the floor and let the pen fall onto it. That was the moment I realized just how exhausted I really was, not from work, but from the soul-crushing reality of my life, which had drained me completely. Walking to the door, I flipped 2 wall switches, which turned on the outdoor and hallway lights. A quick glance through the peephole revealed 2 police officers waiting outside, and that never bodes well. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and asked, "What have I done this time?" I tried to joke, but they didn't even crack a smile. This wasn't a friendly visit. "Are you George Bradley?" "Yes," I said, trying to be polite. "Is your wife Jean Bradley?" "You're right for the 2nd time. May I ask what this is about? Have you ever noticed that police officers never answer your questions? May we come in?" Without waiting for an answer, the officer closest to me stepped over the threshold. I blocked his path and shook my head. "No. I beg your pardon." He seemed surprised, as if no one had ever told him no before. I said, "No, I asked you a question, so you can either answer it or leave. My patience for pleasantries was running out fast. He stepped back, but still didn't answer my question. Have you been here all evening? I crossed my arms over my chest and looked at him as if he were the mess the neighbors might have left on my porch. Yes, and that's the last answer you'll get from me until you answer my question. What's this about? Apparently, I've made it clear they couldn't make me talk on their terms because they finally answered. Your wife was injured and has been taken to Memorial Hospital. I paused for a moment, letting my thoughts settle. No, you said she was taken there. You never clarified if she's alive or dead. Now answer the question or get the hell out. By the time I finished, I was shouting. Again, they exchanged glances. Much later, I wondered if they were disappointed they couldn't read me, frustrated by their inability to intimidate me, or simply unsure how to proceed. Once more, it was the senior officer who spoke. Your wife is currently in surgery. The outcome is unclear. To my immense surprise, those two sentences hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving me speechless. My breathing quickened, which later embarrassed me. When I regained some composure, the two officers were kneeling next to my chair, saying, "Breathe, breathe," while I nodded like an idiot. My wife was shot. That damn woman was shot. Who else but me could have wanted that? Did I just say that out loud? The officers were still telling me to breathe, so I guess not. Can you tell me anything else? When my brief personal crisis passed, they both stood up and resumed their earlier posture, though now they were more forthcoming. Your wife was in a motel room with another gentleman. As far as we can tell, his wife somehow got into the room. Most likely, she just knocked on the door, and he opened it without checking. In any case, she emptied nearly the entire clip into him, saving the remaining bullets for your wife. Luckily for your wife, his wife doesn't seem to be a very good shot. A few of her bullets missed completely, but others hit the target well enough. The man is dead, but the doctors think your wife might pull through. Wow. Once they finally started sharing information, they really laid it all out, and then it hit me. So, you're here to see if I'm involved in any of this? Their faces betrayed no thoughts. We know who did the shooting, but there's always the question of additional parties being involved. Plus, we need to ensure your wife's safety when she's well enough to return home. I think that was the first time all evening that I smiled. She's been perfectly safe these past few weeks, so I don't see why that should change now. They both looked at me as if I was completely missing the point. On a sudden impulse, I decided to give these two a little gift. I reached toward the edge of my chair, and both officers visibly tensed. The younger one even rested his hand on his weapon. "Don't wet your panties, kid. It's just an envelope." I handed them a thick paper envelope that had been sitting on my chair and said, "I met with my lawyer today. She gave me a list of things to take care of and, ironically, told me to make a few more lists myself." With that, I reached toward the other side of the chair and picked up the notepad where I'd been jotting down notes about the divorce. The senior officer opened the envelope and started flipping through the photos, pictures of my wife having sex with a man I'd never seen before. "So, guys, care to tell me the name of the man she was with?" The senior officer spoke without lifting his eyes. "It seems like you already know. They were as excited as two boys who had just discovered adult movies on the internet." That's when the junior officer spoke for the first time. "Wow, they really do look different without holes in them." The senior officer reprimanded him in my presence. Then, turning to me, he said, "Sorry, sir. That was inappropriate. He's new." I simply nodded. I had bigger problems to think about at the moment. My unfaithful wife was in the hospital. She might survive or she might not. I suppose the divorce would have to be delayed for a few days or weeks until we figured out how everything would resolve itself. After repeating that, I had been home all evening and recalling a very convenient phone call from my brother that helped establish my alibi. They reiterated their warning not to harm my wife when she returned. I didn't see the point in going into details, so I simply repeated my earlier response, and they seemed satisfied. When they got ready to leave, I stood up from my chair and saw them out. I turned off the lights, returned to my armchair, sat down, and started processing this new information. She'd been shot. I hadn't expected that. No matter how much I hated her for what she'd done, I had never wished her dead. I wanted her to spend her life regretting crying alone at night, lying in her bed, untouched by any man's hand, as if that was ever going to happen. I started the evening with a clear purpose, working on tasks assigned by my lawyer. It was an excellent way to distract myself from the questions that had plagued me ever since I realized my wife was cheating on me. Now I knew who she was cheating with, but I still had no idea why. Sure, our marriage had its rough patches. She was one of those people who always seemed dissatisfied. Sometimes I could swear she went out of her way to find reasons to be unhappy. I never fully realized this until the divorce process created distance between us, and I began to see things more objectively. Whatever drove her to ruin her life had now made me, to some extent, a suspect in a murder investigation. The pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place, and that's when it hit me. I wasn't alone in this disgusting mess of to live. There was silence on the other end of the line, or something like it, as I heard Joe telling Mary what I had just said. Eventually, Joe continued. "George, is there even the slightest chance you're mistaken about the affair or the shooting?" "Well, both." "No, Joe. I had my suspicions and hired someone to keep an eye on her about 2 weeks ago. I was looking through the photos and transcripts when the police showed up. I've been to the hospital and spoken to her doctor. It's all true." Silence fell again. "What are you going to do?" "I'm sorry, Joe. I've already been to a lawyer. I'm divorcing her." "George, can't you find forgiveness in your heart? I mean, she's been shot and she'll need you. I wanted her too, Joe. But she was having sex with her lover. And that's it?" "Pretty much, yeah. I'll make sure she gets the help she needs during all this, and I'm sure the lawyers will have plenty to say about finances and so on, but I've been lied to too many times. In some ways, that's worse than the sex." She lied to my face so skillfully that I never knew. I didn't suspect a thing. It took Joe a moment to process this. "So what tipped you off?" "She was just never home anymore. We used to do everything together. But in the last few months, she's constantly making plans that don't include me. I decided I needed to find out for myself, so I hired a guy, and he showed me what Jean had been hiding from me. After that, I made my decision. You know, her mom and I were looking forward to having grandchildren." He spoke like a man defeated, and it hit me hard. I knew they wanted grandchildren, and I wanted us to give them grandchildren. "I'm sorry, Joe. I really am. Would you do us a favor?" I thought to myself, here it comes. They want me to hold off on making a decision until Jean gets better, and we can talk. To my surprise, that wasn't it. "Don't be a stranger. Mary and I think of you as the son we never had. I don't want to lose you, even if you divorce our daughter." I couldn't believe my years. Despite everything that had happened, the betrayal, the evidence, the lawyer, the shooting, it was this that made me cry for the first time. "I love you guys too. I really do. I promise I won't disappear." With that, we hung up. If I had felt utterly exhausted before, now I was completely drained. I laid down on the bed, still dressed, and fell into a deep sleep. The morning sun woke me, but I wasn't ready to get up. I got up just enough to close the curtains, undressed, and crawled back into bed to get 2 more hours of much-needed, but restless sleep. When I couldn't sleep anymore, I showered, dressed, and went to grab something to eat before heading to the hospital. It was around 11 when I reached Jean's room. Her parents were already there. She was awake and surprisingly alert. I had expected her to still be under the influence of sedatives or painkillers, but what did I know? I'd never seen a gunshot victim before. I walked into her room, expecting remorse. God, was I wrong. She took one look at me and exploded. You bastard! You son of a bitch! You killed him, didn't you? You killed David! So much for it was just sex. It didn't mean anything. Suddenly, 2 nurses appeared in the room, walking quickly past me, and 2 orderlies, who had been standing nearby, moved in closer. I think they saw me as a threat. I looked at her without a shred of compassion in my heart.